Hi, everybody. My name's Ben Gitenstein. I'm really excited to have you all here today and to talk about how you can help win deals and boost your impact as a PM selling enterprise SaaS. Um, Super excited. Let's jump on in. There's an old expression in our business, building enterprise SaaS products, that in enterprise SaaS, you're either building the product or you're selling it. This is really goes to the notion that in the stuff we build, enterprise SaaS, you either are one of the people who creates the thing that we sell, or you're one of the people that sells the thing that we make. But I think that's a little bit wrong because I actually think the lines are a lot more blurry than we think they are. And in fact, I think that if you build enterprise SaaS products, you need to help sell them. It will make you better at building them. And it also is an incredibly important part of your job and an incredibly important contribution that you can make to the organization. And really, the purpose of this presentation is to explain why I believe that and try to make the case. Quick overview of what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a little intro to me and who I am. Then I'm going to talk about the anatomy of an enterprise deal. What is an enterprise deal and how can you get involved in it? Then I'm going to talk about why. Why are enterprise deals a big opportunity for you as a PM, and why should you jump in with both feet? And last, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to get involved in enterprise deals and how to help close them, and how not to, some of the pitfalls to avoid. So, a quick overview of me. My name's Ben Gitenstein. I've been in enterprise product management for about 20 years now. I work over at Google today, but I've worked at Amazon, I've worked at Microsoft, I've worked at a startup. I've almost always done my work either in enterprise applications or most recently for the last about 10, 12 years in enterprise SaaS infrastructure, meaning selling infrastructure products as SaaS. I really love enterprise products in general, but in particular, I love enterprise infrastructure products for several reasons. First, I love them because they're foundational. Everything we do at the upper layer of the stack, whether that's end user applications or websites or interactive applications or databases or analytics applications, all those things require infrastructure. And without the infrastructure products that we build, you can't deliver those things. I also love enterprise infrastructure products because they're flexible. In other words, I build one thing, one product. I tend to work in storage a lot. I build one type of storage, and my customers use it in lots of crazy, really surprising ways. And I love watching that happen. I also love the benefit of that, the leverage of that I can build one thing and customers can use that same storage product for virtual desktops, databases, large analytics workflows, sequencing genomes, making movies, the whole range of things. And that's, to me, really exciting. And lastly, and this really connects to today's presentation, I love building enterprise infrastructure products because it's tangible. And this goes to what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today, which is I really love building products where I can say, hey, this is a thing. Now, Mr. Customer, you buy it, you give us money, and in exchange for that money, you get a thing that you can use in your environment. And that tangibleness is really powerful. And it also leads directly to you have to be a part of helping sell it to get the value of the tangible thing you're building. So, it's Monday morning, you open up your email or your chat app for work, and you get the dreaded sales team request. Hey, we're trying to close this huge deal at this incredibly strategic account that all the VPs know the name of. That's going to be hugely important for winning the quarter or hitting our revenue number for the year. And we need help from PM. Can PM give a roadmap presentation? Can PM come jump in and help me fill in this RFP or RFI or quote or proposal in some way? We need a bunch of numbers. Or maybe the most painful of all, can PM make a commitment to a feature to be delivered by the end of the year or by a certain date? What's even more painful is often these happen with very little warning. In other words, you get the email on Monday morning and the presentation of the customer is the next day. Or sometimes you have to travel to make the presentation in person and you need to get on a plane tomorrow to do it. Now, for most of us as PMs, to be honest, and I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, when we see this request, we usually roll our eyes and maybe even say a nasty word under our breath when we first see it. We look at this as a burden and an imposition. We look at it as a distraction from what we really want to be doing, which is working with engineering on building a new product, or doing research with customers on what they want, or testing new ideas, or thinking through a new pricing model. We see it as a taking away from that. I'm going to challenge that notion today and say that these opportunities, these requests are huge opportunities for you to boost your career, to build better products, and to generally become more valuable to your organization and to be better at your job. So the rest of this talk is really trying to reframe these requests into something valuable for you. So before we go any further, let's start with understanding what is an enterprise deal. There are really three types of enterprise deals, and they follow a very common pattern that we all hear a lot about in enterprise SaaS, which is land, expand, and renew. Land deals are the first deal that you win in a customer's environment. It's usually your first workload, your first toehold, sometimes it's even a pilot at the customer's environment. Then come expand deals. So these are where you've had one or two workloads running in the customer's environment, and they're ready to either scale that existing workload up and go much bigger, or scale out and bring in new workloads, new business units, new organizations, new teams into your product. And lastly, renewal. So almost all SaaS products have some form of term-based subscription model or contract model. When you get about 6 months before the end of that term, you start asking the customer to renew and to think about renewal. And that in and of itself is its own kind of deal. Each one of these deals has a different set of problems or challenges that you're going to have to overcome as an organization, not just as a PM, but as a whole organization. So when you're landing your first workload, you've got to really prove yourself and show that your product has a reason for the customer to give it a try, a real try, not just a demo. That means demonstrating your differentiation. Hey, here we do something really unique and valuable that the rest of the products in our space don't do. You got to prove your relevance. You have to show that you solve a problem that the customer really has and a problem that really matters. And lastly, when you're winning these first deals, there's almost always a sticky competitor who's in there already. Now, they may not solve the problem you solve, or they may only claim to solve that problem, but still there's somebody there already, and you're going to have to help show why you are better, different, faster, cheaper, bigger, more powerful than them. Expand deals have their own challenges. Now you really have to account for the track record of your product. You've got to deal with the fact that your product may have had slip-ups, it may have had bugs, it may have had downtime. You've also got to defend that track record to the customer. As the PM, you may think, but I'm not the customer success manager, I'm not the engineer, I'm not the reliability, the SRE. Actually, as the face of the product to the customer, you really do have to own the track record of your product. You also have to deal with a bunch of new requirements. It's a new workload, or it's an existing workload that got a lot bigger. So it may need higher performance. It may need different performance. It may need new features that weren't previously required in the first foothold that you won. And lastly, there are always alternatives. No matter what you tell yourself about how great your product is and how unique it is, there is something else out there that could conceivably do that job. And you have to show why your product is better and more valuable than that approach. Renewal deals bring a whole different set of challenges that are mostly about time and money. So first, consumption. Has the customer consumed all of the commitment they originally made at the beginning of the term? And if not, why not? And you're going to have to work through that and help understand why they didn't, and help convince yourself and the customer that they should still renew and that there's still value to be had. Second, you have a discounting challenge because the customer's been using your product for a while, and they're going to expect to get a better deal when they re-up. Lastly, and most importantly for you as a PM, they're going to want to understand the future. They're going to fundamentally believe or expect that your product will get better over time, and it's your job to represent that future innovation so that the customer sees the value constantly increasing in their subscription. As a PM, you play a different role in each one of those types of deals. So when you are working with a sales team on a land deal, you really are the explainer in chief for the product. It's your job to introduce the customer to what your product does and why it solves a problem that is important, and it solves that problem uniquely. As the person who built the product, who ideally was there from the beginning of the product, there really shouldn't be anybody better at doing that than you. When it comes to expand deals, actually your job's a little different. Now your job is to defend the product and show why your product is right for the job. It's also your job to help the sales team fit the product to the workload. So you've got a new, bigger workload or a different kind of workload. It's your job to help the sales team pick the right version of the product. In the vast majority of cases, your sales team should be able to do that themselves without your help. But when you're brought in for the really important ones, the expectation is that you know your product so well that you can help fit it. And lastly, when it comes to renewal deals, now is really your chance to shine because this is your chance to explain the future of the product and project out into the future about what your product is going to do years down the road so that you can really show off the innovation that's coming. That's where really you are the keeper of the keys. Okay, so that's what an enterprise deal is and what your potential role is across those different types of enterprise deals. Now let's talk about why getting involved in enterprise deals as a PM is not a burden, but it's an opportunity. As an enterprise SaaS PM, you all have different versions of this framework, but I'm going to talk briefly about what the job of an enterprise SaaS PM really is. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about how getting involved in deals really helps each one of those parts of the job. So the first and most foundational part of the job is defining the product. It is your job to set the product vision and strategy. No one else can do that. Second, even though engineering writes the code and builds the product, it's actually your job to be accountable for delivery. And the most tangible thing that you do there is make constant trade-off decisions about which feature, effort, or problem to prioritize and how to trade that off versus other options. Third, you really are the explainer in chief for the product. You've been there from the beginning of it. You wrote the PRD or the PRFAQ or the spec. You understand the customers most deeply and the business and value propositions. So you really are the best person to ensure that sales, marketing, success, everybody around the company knows how to talk about your product. And lastly, and obviously by far most importantly, you are the most knowledgeable about what your customers need. It is your job to understand the customer for your product and make sure you're building something they really want, need, and are willing to pay for. Well, it turns out getting involved in enterprise deals will help you in all four of these roles. So starting on the right, there is no better way to understand what a customer really needs from your product than to get deeply involved with the process. You will see up close and personal what customers will pay for and what they won't. There's no better way to refine how you talk about a product, to test messages, and to find out which of your attempts to explain the product, which of your messages work and which don't, than trying to explain it directly to a customer as part of a sales process. If you want to make great trade-off decisions that are really tied to real customer need, get involved in deals. Because when you get involved in helping your sales teams close deals, you will make better prioritization decisions because they will be tied directly to a paying customer that you've talked to and that you know really needs a feature and you deeply understand why they need that feature. And lastly, boy, if you want to set the vision for a product, the most tangible signal you have for future value is buying signals. And when a customer tells you, if you deliver X capability, I will buy the product, that is a very valuable signal to use for building your future product strategy. But there are some other intangible benefits that extend beyond those sort of core roles of a PM to jumping in on enterprise deals. First, you're going to strengthen your alliance with the sales team. You're going to get really good, close friendships with them. They're going to come to rely on you, and they're going to be people that you can call on later when you have a question or when you need to talk to a customer or when you want to validate an idea. Those sales teams will now be your allies. Second, you're going to get recognized because the organization really does care about closing big deals. This is the way to get to the help to get a VP to recognize you, to get the CEO or the head of product or the head of sales and marketing to say like, hey, that PM really helped us get that deal over the line. And it has a huge impact, and that's going to reflect positively back on you. You're going to build out of your network. You're going to meet a bunch of people around the company and in the partner community and customers. And that's always good for you. You're going to meet the pricing team and the deal team and a bunch of sales teams and a bunch of support teams because you're going to work through the RFP or help closing the deal or setting the discount, whatever. And lastly, you're going to recruit customer advocates, which is a hugely valuable asset. You're going to meet up close and personal with a customer who really needs something in order to purchase. And they usually need that because they have a real business need. And when you deliver that for them or explain how your product does deliver it for them already, they're going to become advocates for your product, which is hugely valuable. They can write blog posts, they can write testimonials, record videos, or also just be people that you can call up and say, hey, I'm building a new feature and I want to understand if I'm thinking about it right. Can I pitch it to you? Can I get some feedback on this idea? Hugely valuable things. Okay, so we've talked about what an enterprise deal is. We've talked about why you should look at these enterprise deals as opportunities, not as burdens. Now let's talk about how to get involved and how not to get involved. So as an enterprise SaaS PM, you really have 5 tools at your disposal. Some of these you should always use, and some of these you should rarely use. And it's really important to understand each one of them and to use them at the right time and place, and to be careful of the pitfalls they could bring with them. So the first tool right at the top there is to always ask, to understand the need of the customer. Invariably, a sales team is going, or a partner is going to ask you a very direct, very specific question about a feature or about a pricing model or about a discount or about timing of delivery. And your instinct, because you're a helpful person, is going to be to just answer the question. That's the wrong instinct. Don't do that. Instead, do the thing that our parents always told us never to do, which is to respond to a question with a question. Why do you need that feature? What problem are you trying to solve? What's going on? What's not working in my product that you need that improvement? Can you tell me more about the scenario? Digging in with those questions will really, really help you actually get to the right answer, which is often not what the original question was. By the way, the sales team or others may act as gatekeepers here and say, please don't come in and ask my customer to explain again how their workflow works. Don't listen to that. Always start the meeting with the customer explaining what they're trying to do, what their needs are. Play dumb if you have to, and just say like, hey, I know you've explained this in some other meetings, but I'd really love to just start by making sure I understand really deeply what you're trying to accomplish so that I can bring the best information there and not waste your time. Second, pitch your product. No matter what you do, always start by explaining the value of your product. Do not jump right into a roadmap or an answer to a question or, diagnosing a bug. Always start by explaining the value your product brings. If for no other reason than it reminds the customer, hey, here's how we think about what we're trying to accomplish with our product. So the customer can say, wait, time out. I don't care about any of those things. Now you know you have a real problem. Or most likely you will reframe the conversation back into a positive light where the customer will say, yeah, you're right. Your product does actually solve some really important problems for me. I just have these 1 or 2 questions. But always start with the positive. Always start with selling what your product does. Sometimes, and now we're getting more into the things you may or may not do, you're going to want to help size the product. So here, I would strongly recommend that you get really good at figuring out the most common ways that customers should size their usage of your product. So put yourself in their shoes and be able to say whether you sell seats or cores or capacity or performance or some combination thereof, be sure that you know how to size your product for the most common scenarios your customers are going to see. Get out your pricing calculator and try it out. But you should be really good at doing that. Now let's talk about roadmaps. There are times when you're going to want to give a roadmap, a real roadmap, meaning here's how my product is going to deliver over and improve over the coming weeks, months, quarters, years. It's important to have a roadmap. Take the time to get your roadmap built in advance. Don't build it on the fly before the meeting. But some rules of the road for roadmaps. One, you should always be very specific about the things that are in flight that you know a lot about, where delivery is very clear, and very, very vague about the things where you don't have clear line of sight to delivery. That means that the stuff that's coming near term, you should have a lot of clarity and be very specific about. And the stuff that's coming long term, you should be a lot more vague about. And you should be sure to signal that vagueness in how you talk about it. Talk in weeks, months, or quarters for the near term stuff, talk in halves or years for the later stuff. Also, no dates on your roadmap should be there unless your engineering counterparts are really comfortable with them. Lastly, always have a disclaimer slide. Always have some slide on your roadmap that says, hey, these dates are not a commitment to deliver code by a certain date. This is just a projection into the future. Last and the most dangerous of all are commitments. There are times when you will need to make a commitment to deliver a feature by a certain date as part of getting involved in a deal. You need to be super careful about doing this. Treat this like the CEO is making a commitment to this customer, that you're making a promise. And think through, hey, am I really ready to make that promise? Do I have any reason to think that that promise might not be able to be met? Is it engineering priorities may change, bugs may happen, something that you thought that the eng team thought would be easy turns out to be hard. All those things could happen, and be really thoughtful about, hey, if I think the risk of those is material, do I really want to make this commitment? Lastly, do not make an engineering or product delivery commitment with a date unless you've walked through it with your management chain, with legal, and with your, of course, most importantly, with your eng team. So I'm going to close out with just a few do's and don'ts as you approach this problem. So when you're brought into a deal, when you get that sales request for help, you should always, always, always let the customer talk first and be sure to talk to the customer. Don't let other people gatekeep and keep you from talking to the customer. If you're going to help in the deal, get involved and talk directly to the customer. Be sure you ask why and ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid of asking questions. It's a super important product management skill. Assume your product can do the job today, that your product can actually solve what the customer needs today. Don't assume that you're going to have to build a new feature. And in fact, if a customer says, hey, I need this feature to say yes, actually start by saying, well, let's be sure we understand why I can't solve that problem with the product as it is today. And lastly, work backwards from success. So start with assuming that my product does what it needs to do. Here's all the steps we need to take in order to get you successfully renewed on term or expanded to a new workflow or landed with our first deal in your environment. Now, some of the most important stuff, the don'ts. I love sales teams. Sales teams are amazing partners, but don't take their word for it. They're going to be very confident often about what the customer needs. Don't take their word for it. Talk directly to the customer. Don't just answer the question. When a customer asks you a first set of questions about, or a sales team asks you a first set of questions about feature delivery, don't just jump right in with the answer. Start by playing back why. Lastly, as we talked about in the previous slide, don't make date commitments unless you absolutely have to, and unless all the people that you need to be aligned with it are ready to do that. So Eng and legal are the two people that you're going to want most aligned with you. I hope that was helpful. I hope it helped you reframe a little bit how you think about selling and helping to sell as an enterprise SaaS PM. And I hope you feel empowered to do it safely and successfully. So good luck building and good luck selling. Thanks so much.